us here in studio. Let me see the lineup. We have the lineup here in studio. We've got Kenyon Johnson, prosecutor. We've got Philip Snyder, criminal defense attorney. John Manuelian, criminal defense attorney as well. You know, today would have been Reeva Steenkamp's 30th birthday. The South African model was shot to death on Valentine's Day by her Olympic sprinter boyfriend, Oscar Pistorius, in his home. The Blade Runner was indicted in court today, visibly weeping as he was charged with planned and premeditated murder. If he's found guilty, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. He's in bed with Reeva, right? And then he says it's too dark to realize if she's still in there. The door to the bathroom is closed, so he just shoots through the door, not knowing who's on the other side.
And here's what I find ridiculous. This guy is on top of the world. He's the top guy. Yep. He's dating a supermodel, a lingerie model. What's his motive? What's his motive for going and killing her?
It's domestic violence. I mean, you know what happens behind closed doors. That's why domestic violence exists.
I think the government's going to have a tough time in this case.
Really?
I really do.
Do you think there's an explanation for that? I mean, I don't know what your night vision is, but if it's dark, it's so dark that I can't see who's in the bed. It's going to be too dark for me to see my 9mm gun, which is smaller than a human being.
Remember, it's the government's burden to prove this case, but I do think there's going to be an explanation. And I think that the forensics will show, because this is the most unusual case, because you'll know right away, based on the issue with the stumps and the prosthetics, what angle the gun was being fired at, and it's my understanding that's going to play a big, big part into whether he was acting in self-defense or whether this was premeditated.
A star college football player and 4 of his teammates are accused of covering up a rape at Vanderbilt University. Back with me now, my legal dream team. And sometimes it's easier to prove the cover-up than it is the actual crime that's being covered up. What do you think about in this case?
Absolutely. The cover-up's the easy part to show. After the crime's been done, they're going to point to this guy and say, what did you do? You knew about this. Why did you cover this up? And he could be just as culpable as the individuals who made the charges of rape.
Well, here's the thing. If you got the guys for the cover-up and you've indicted them, could you go after them to perhaps help you in the rape prosecution itself? Get them to turn evidence. And, I mean, if I'm not facing rape and I'm facing the cover-up and you're going to give me some sort of deal, maybe that's something I think about.
Absolutely. People flip on each other all the time. And when one person has a good deal, they say, guess what? He did it, he did it, he did it, he did it. I'm off the hook. You guys are going to prison for a very long time.
It's time for the accuser to testify. How difficult is that, and how do you cross-examine someone when they're making an accusation like this without looking like you're victimizing them again, Phil?
It's very, very difficult. It's a fine line. And to go back to the football, I mean, I went to the University of Florida. I know firsthand, those football players are treated like gold. They are at the highest pinnacle. And that juror, those jurors are going to see them. They're going to be like, why are you going after our football players? So it's a very, very fine line for a defense attorney to cross-examine that victim, because you have to be diligent and forceful to make your position, but you also have to go back with kid gloves, because it is a very, very serious and substantial allegation.
Andrea Sneiderman found guilty of lying to cover up an affair with her boss, the same boss, Hemi Newman, who's already serving a life sentence for murdering her husband, Rusty. During Newman's trial, Sneiderman called the notion that she would have an affair ridiculous. She'll have an opportunity to speak. Does she?
She should.
Yeah?
And she should own it. Own it, girl, because you...
Own what?
Own the fact that you committed this crime. Because if you go up there and you say, Judge, I got a bad rap, this never happened, this is all garbage, that judge is going to whack her.
Okay.
Own it.
What's a fair sentence here? What's a fair sentence for lying to investigators who are investigating the murder of your husband? Lying in a court of law. What's appropriate here?
Probably a year on each count.
So that'd be about 9 years.
I think that's appropriate.
Doesn't our whole system fall apart if people don't speak truthfully to investigators, number one, and then speak truthfully in a court of law, number two?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm one of the minority that's surprised that they actually came back on 9 counts. That being said, judges don't like liars. Jurors don't like liars. It's the whole foundation of the legal system. I think the jury spoke. I think they came back on 9 counts. I think 9 years is appropriate.
And meanwhile, guess who's back in the news? Lindsay Lohan. Yeah, is hoping for another second chance. Oh, boy. And she says, this time, it's different. And this was it was really a stellar career as a youngster. But it was...
Mean Girls, one of my favorite movies.
Mean Girls, was The Parent Trap. She can sing a little bit as well, yet it's all sort of... I mean, you see this day in and day out, though, in our criminal justice system, 90% of the people that are there have some form of addiction to something, right?
Many a client on the criminal side comes in, Phil, I'm clean, I'm ready to go, and then 2 years later that call comes. It's like an annuity. Hey, I'm back in court. I got a drug charge. 2 years later, I'm back in court. I got a drug charge. I got to tell you, I don't believe a word out of her mouth. Proof is in the pudding. Let's see what she does in 2 years.
Let's see what she does. And sometimes